All right, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. And I am fired up because today we are going to be talking about something that, needs to be talked about. And that is Etsy selling advice that should be avoided in 2023. And we're going to be answering some true or false questions. And we're going to be giving our thoughts on these questions. Now, some of these could have worked a year ago, 3 years ago. It might have been a good thought a few years ago. But now what we need to do is we need to see, is this advice that we're hearing, is it stuff that is relevant now? Is it outdated? Is it still working now? And we're talking about things that you're probably hearing on a regular basis, depending on who you're subscribed to, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's a podcast or whether it's a blog. And so what we wanted to do is come on this podcast and this video and really go through what we're hearing. And we're going to go through a bunch of different questions. And Chris, I know that there's a lot of content out there. Before we jump into the first question that we're going to be answering and really deep diving on, what would you like to say about some of the things that you're hearing and some of the new sellers and what they're faced with now with all of this content that we have available at our disposal?
I think it's actually this is a good time to kind of break things down because Etsy's been around for a while now, and things that used to work don't work anymore, and things that worked a week ago might not work anymore, right? And so with time in anything, right? Like you and I have backgrounds doing a lot of different stuff. We've been really involved in the e-commerce world. We've seen systems move and change, right? SEO, search engine optimization, if you think about creating content for websites, that process is very different than it was 10 years ago. And SEO for products, creating products, listing products, running ads, whether or not you should do that, all of that stuff changes. Why? Because ecosystems change, and Etsy is an ecosystem. So some of the things that were really good ideas 2 years ago are terrible ideas now. And some of the things that were terrible ideas 2 years ago are the way to go now, just because of how the system has moved and changed. And so we have to constantly be conscious of the fact that these things are changing. And there's a lot of things that I'm seeing, Scott, that are myths that really no one should be paying attention to, or they have a little grain of truth in them. And you and I have talked about some of these in the past, right? Where somebody goes, well, common sense would say, right? Okay, but now let's think about what Etsy's job is, right? Common sense would say, if I stuff all these keywords into a title, then I'm definitely going to rank for all of them. Well, Etsy might be more concerned about customer experience or like actually somebody being able to find the product. And so even though it's common sense, we have to balance what we think with what Etsy is thinking to arrive to some of those things. And so a lot of this stuff changes over time. We wanted to take the time to sit down and answer some of the common things, basically just give you a true or false and then an explanation of that, of some of the things that we're seeing pop up, and give you our interpretation of whether they're a good idea, a bad idea, or just not worth pursuing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it's confusing for a lot of people. And also we need to kind of break it down and see like, okay, what here makes sense, and also what pertains to where you are right now. And I think that's what we are going to be addressing here. So that's what we're going to be discussing here. We've got a bunch of these to go over. I will say this, if you are listening to this on the podcast, you can always head on over to our Rock Your Brand Facebook group at brandcreators.com/group. And that is where all the cool kids hang out. At least that's what I've been told. So you can go on, head on over there and watch with us there. Or you might be on YouTube right now, and that's another good place for cool kids to hang out when they're watching this live stream, if they're watching the podcast. So, all right, Chris, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and dive into the first question. So I am going to ask you this question, and I want you to give me a true or false. And then from there, I want you to elaborate a little bit on why it's true or false. So the very first question is, Etsy is too saturated and all the good niches are taken. True or false?
False. I guess the first question is, what is a good niche? Right. And so the most obvious lowest hanging fruit, like a wedding or baby, right? If we use those as the big overhead overarching things as a niche, then yes, those two things have a lot of competition in them. Right. But when we're thinking about competition, we're thinking about niches. The thing I think, Scott, that most people overlook is that we need to understand, one, what our number is. And you and I have talked about this in the past, right? Even a very low competition, low volume niche could be the right niche for somebody. But in the case of a high competition, high volume niche, if I want to make $5 million the first year in the wedding space, is that possible? Yes. Is there a lot of competition that would stop that from happening? Yes, but the numbers are still there. And so we would just have to do the work. And when it comes to niches, whether we're talking about Etsy, Amazon, building websites, right? The thing I think that a lot of people miss is it's all about the entry angle. So if we want to be in the wedding niche and we say, hey, wedding t-shirts are oversaturated, well, that's one product type. Let's look at the other things that people need for weddings, right? Is it a planner? Okay, digital planners for weddings might be oversaturated. Is it party favors? Is it placemats? Is it whatever, right? And if we can find one or two products that are being underserved in that market, then we can make our way into an oversaturated niche, right? Something that you would otherwise stay away from. The other side of that is once we get our foot in the door, our job is to then start launching products and building our brand and our audience. And by doing that, as we start to launch more and more competitive products, we're able to conquer even really competitive niches, right? The thing I would say there, the caveat that I would make for that is, okay, unless you're really passionate about a hyper competitive niche like weddings, is there something else that you could launch in just to make your life easier and to not even have to worry about that? And the answer is almost always yes. If your thing is weddings and you love weddings and that's what you want to do, there's absolutely a way to get into that niche on Etsy. But if it's just one of many things that you're interested in, my suggestion would be, yes, take a look at a less competitive niche, unless you really, really love the wedding stuff, right? So you can definitely rank and compete in a competitive niche. It's a matter of finding the way to get your foot in the door. But if you don't have to still reach your goal, then I would probably go that route. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm going to go with faults as well. And the reason why is because, like you said, I actually think that it's easier to enter a more saturated competitive niche because there's ways that we can sub niche down. So instead of us going after the entire wedding market or baby market, we can go after a small portion of that audience and really just go after, maybe it's invitations, or maybe it is planner templates, but they are for the bachelorette party or whatever, right? Like, so maybe I am going to just sub niche and drill down versus going after the entire niche. And again, like Chris said, if you're passionate about something, why not go after it? And the thing is with what we're doing on Etsy is we're a lot of times creating design, right? So we're creating designs that are unique. So that makes us be able to create things that not everyone else is selling. Now, it might be similar, but it's not the exact same thing, or at least it shouldn't be. So when I hear people saying that it's oversaturated and there's, all the good niches are taken, well, that's just, to me, that's a negative mindset. We have to go at this thing like, if you are interested in that niche and you feel that you can add value and you would have fun. The other thing, if you would have fun creating products for that niche, then I say go for it. All right. And that's my response to that. If anyone says, well, yeah, it's just too saturated, all the good niches are taken, I'd be like, no, they're really not, because we have a lot of opportunity to drill down and really go into these sub niches. And then we can level up and go into those other ones once we start getting established. All right. So let's move on to the next question that we have here, or the Etsy selling advice that we should avoid in 2023, and the true and false is here that we're going to be doing. So here is the second one I want to send your way, Chris.
Okay.
You should choose random niches and find trends to build your Etsy shop from. So what do you think on that? True or false?
False. And we actually just got a comment, Scott, that said the biggest challenge I see when people open a business, whether it's online or brick and mortar, is that they want to be everything to everybody. Niching down is key. And that, I think, is the thing that a lot of people are missing in this like niche versus product debate, right? When we were just talking about niches being competitive, right? One of the things, especially in the Etsy world, that I see people saying is, oh, selling t-shirts is competitive. T-shirts aren't a niche. T-shirts are a product. Who is the person that is buying that t-shirt, right? That is your niche. If it's a fishing t-shirt, fishing is the niche. And if we focus on that, we're much more quickly and easily able to scale our business. So I would say, Scott, this is absolutely false. Can you find trends in your space and pursue them? Yes. Should you go after random trends? No. Why? Because they are trends. Definitionally, they are going to go away, right? Theoretically, Scott, could somebody stop being interested in fishing? Yes. Is all fishing interest going to go away in our lifetimes?
Right.
Unless all the fish go away, no, right? There's still going to be people who are interested in that. How many people a year now are buying pet rocks? How many people a year are buying Tamagotchis? Yeah, there's still a handful of people who are like Tamagotchi enthusiasts, Scott, do you even know what a Tamagotchi is? Or
I don't.
So I think you were a little too old for that and your kids are a little too young for that. So I don't know if you remember in the early 90s, it was like a little keychain video game that you had like a monster on and you had to like feed it and stuff, right? Yep. They were huge. And then you had Pogs, you had all of these things, right? No one uses them anymore. Yeah, you can find a handful of people buying them on eBay, but they've gone away. So if we're chasing a trend, be it a very specific design, be it a funny cultural moment, right? Will Smith slapping Chris Rock t-shirt or whatever, right? Like that is going to wane over time. What's not going to wane over time is interest in a niche. And if we can focus on that, especially a niche that we're passionate in, then we're able to create a sustainable business, which is really what this should be about. If you're just selling on Etsy to make a couple bucks, then maybe you do that. But if you're looking to replace your 9-to-5 income, or you're looking for something to help offset your retirement or to help pay medical bills or whatever this is, you want that sustainable long-term income. The other thing with this is it's a lot less competitive to not have to chase the trend. Oh, and your work multiplies over time, right? So if we spend all day creating a trend following product, when that trend goes away, we've lost that work. If instead we have a niche that we are passionate about, not just a random thing that we don't care about, but a niche that we are truly passionate about, right? For example, we're really passionate about weddings or whatever it is, then we have the ability to create evergreen products that are going to create that sustainable revenue. And we have sustainable energy in that niche to continue creating products, right? So it's not something that we are going to get burned out on, and it's not something where the products are going to get burned out. So I would say anybody that's saying launch a product in a random niche, just throw up anything or chase a trend, I would say that's bad advice and that is false.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that one. I mean, you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth because, well, we think a lot alike. And, for years, we've never been about that. And for years, people have been chasing trends. And, print on demand isn't something brand new. Like people have been doing print on demand for a long time, whether it's on their own website, whether it's running Facebook ads to a Teespring account. It's been going on a very, very long time. And that was what people were doing, is just chasing the trends. And we still hear it to this day. And I see it. Other so-called gurus out there saying basically just do your product research, looking for top products that are coming up, right? And they're starting to trend and people are going to piggyback on those. And then everyone's going to jump in, and you'll see it. Once one of the gurus mentions this shirt, 150, 200 people instantly go on out and start trying to launch this shirt, even though they're not even in that niche. So that to me is 100% bad advice. I would not follow that advice. And, yes, could you jump on one of these and it could take off? Sure, but it's probably going to go away. And then guess what? You're going to try to find that next golden ticket, if you will. And I don't like building a business in that way, because you're not really building a business. And not to mention, when you have a customer that comes in that buys that one t-shirt or that one mug that you were able to get that thing to take off for a little while, those people aren't ever going to probably buy from you again because it's not similar. It's not related. So for me personally, I think that's bad advice. I would not follow that advice. And again, that's our opinion. That's what we, that's what we live by. And also it just makes it so much easier to now know that you can just focus on that one niche. And even if it's that one sub niche, and then you're going to level up a little bit and kind of start to branch out, like the wedding niche, like we were just talking about. If we start there with bachelorette parties and we're going to make our shop kind of start honing in on that, that doesn't mean that that's all we're ever going to sell to the wedding market. So yes, I think that is very, very bad advice. And I would not follow that advice. But again, that's just my opinion, Chris's opinion. can do what you want. But to me, it makes a lot more sense to build a product line from products that are going to be selling now, but well into the future.
So, Scott, what are your thoughts? And we just got this question from somebody who's joining us on YouTube, right? And if you guys aren't doing that, you can do that anytime by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Anytime we go live, you'll get that notification, or by going to brandcreators.com/group. We had a question that's kind of related to this, right? That is, if you're new, can or should you do trends just to get your first few sales? What are your thoughts on that versus building a store around trends? Should you jump on a trend if you're new to try to get some momentum?
Well, okay, so let's discuss that real quick, right? So if we're going to go after a trend, is that trend something that is in your niche that you want to get started in? So you have to think longer than just if that product starts to sell well. You have to think about what comes next. What's the next product you're going to sell that customer? At least that's how I think. So I'm not going to be just looking through. I mean, I have the same tools that you guys have, right? And the main one that I'm using is Everbee, and I go in there all the time, and I do research videos for YouTube, right, to help people understand how to do product research. But even though I'm finding these really cool products, and I would love to be able to have the sales that they have, I'm also keeping myself disciplined to say, but you're not going to do that because, yeah, if you had that one product and you're able to compete with that person that's doing really well, which is going to also take work. So if you see a product that's selling very well, you need to understand in order to compete with them, you got to get some sales out of the gate pretty quickly. And a lot of times it's going to take some Etsy ads, maybe some Facebook ads and things like that. But my personal thought is, if it's something that's trending in my niche, then yes, I will definitely consider that. But if I'm just starting and I'm looking at stuff that's trending, I'm going to say, okay, is that something that I'm going to be able to tap into? But then also, am I going to be able to build a brand around it after the trend kind of dies down? Does that make sense, Chris?
It does. And I think the one area, and I don't think it's a disagreement, I think it's more of a clarification. The one area where I would be really careful with that is for new shops, right? Like the exact wrong time to try to chase a trend is when you are a new shop. Why? Definitionally, a trend is something that a lot of people are interested in, right? Like, I don't know the actual definition, but I think we can agree that, I'm not Webster, I'm a Schaefer, but we can kind of make that an agreement, right? Trends definitionally have a lot of interest. That also means there's a lot of people creating products for that trend, right? If you are a new store, it is harder for you to compete with the people who have the resources, the sales history to crank out a bunch of products related to that trend. So the same amount of time and effort that you're going to put in as a new store to hopefully get some sales on that new trend, right? You could put into evergreen products that are easier to rank for and are going to bring you sales forever. I would rather see you put that time and effort there, right? I would rather see you make one sale a day for the next 2 years on a product that you put that time and investment in than 60 sales over the next month and then nothing after that. Does that make sense? Because that's the thing that people don't, it's a time balance thing, right? If I have 20 minutes today to put up a new Etsy listing, should I invest that in something that is a trend that I might make a few sales on right now? Or should I invest that same amount of time and energy into creating something that's going to get me sales for the next 2 years? I would rather see you do that. When you're a more established store, if you have a trend and you have a fun way of bringing that into your niche, your market, that's when I would take the flyer on it, right? Don't build your store around it. Don't do it when you're just getting started. But if you're established, you have steady sales coming in, you know that you're going to be able to rank for it because you have sales history and Etsy will reward you for that, then maybe take a flyer on it. Otherwise, I would rather see you doing the evergreen stuff. Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%. And, I'm going to leave you guys with this on this question. And that is always be thinking about, are you going to be able to sell more to that same customer? And that is huge. And that might be a writer downer, because if you start to think along those lines, now you have a customer that has purchased from you that might buy from you again in the future. So now that people are favoriting your shop, they're favoriting your items, and now you put up a new listing, they're going to get notified of that. And now they're interested in that, rather than you just saying like, well, I was able to jump in on a trendy product and I'm getting some sales right now, but you're not going to be able to do nothing with it later. So it's really a short-term mindset, in my opinion.
Scott, but before we move on to the next myth, one more thing on trends. Are holidays trends? And should we create products for holidays? True or false?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so yes, you should create holiday type products for your niche. Now, let me say that again, for your niche. Don't go after St. Patrick's Day stuff in a completely different niche if you're not in there, right? Just because you see that, oh, well, they're really selling well, so I should probably do that. But yes, you should be planning. And I actually did a full video on this, on how to really do some holiday hacking and how to really plan out all of those holidays and do it 30, 60, 90 days ahead of time. And then once you get a catalog, here's the cool thing. Once you get a catalog of products, inventory that you did for this year, well, guess what? Next year, it's in there and it's ready to sell again. So yes, I definitely would be tapping into the holiday hacking strategy for sure. All right, let's go ahead and let's go to the next question here, or not even the question, the next bit of advice that we're hearing out there. All right, so here it is. You should stop using tags in your listings because they don't help you rank in 2023. And they don't help you get traffic. So what's your thoughts on Etsy tags in your listings? Should you, shouldn't you? What do you think on that statement? Is that true or false?
Do we have something stronger than false? This to me, and Scott, we've seen this ourselves. This is blatantly false. Are they less important as Etsy gets smarter? Yes. Are they unimportant? No. Should you do them? Yes. Right? Should you spend all day worrying about getting the exact perfect tags? No. Should you not ever touch them? No, you definitely should include tags on your listing. And Scott, we've seen this with pay-per-click, right? Running Etsy ads, we weren't ranking or showing up, even trying to pay to show up for some keywords. Went into the listing, added it as a tag, miracle of miracles, we started showing up, right? Magic happened and we started showing up. So whether or not it's the most powerful ranking factor or not, take the 10 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe a minute to drop in those tags and fill it out. Even if it didn't rank directly for you, right? Even if it wasn't the most important thing, which it's not, right? You have title, description, click-through rate, conversion rate, all of these things that Etsy uses to determine how and when you rank for something. It just is another data point, and not taking the time to do it is hurting your sales. I don't think I'm out of the box saying that, right? Even if it only worked for ads, it would be worth putting them in there, right? So I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but to me, this is blatantly false.
Yeah, no, again, it's one of those things that if Etsy is giving us the ability to add something, then we probably should add something, right? If they're allowing us to put tags in there, we should put them in there. Now, am I saying that you should spend a whole bunch of time getting all of the best tags and putting them in there? No, I mean, I would put in enough time to where you're able to come up with a lot of long tail or other related types of keywords, because that's really what we're doing. And you always want to think about it this way, at least I do, is where I am putting any type of information in that listing is also being crawled by the Etsy search engine. Once again, Etsy is a search engine for people that are searching to buy things. Okay. It's a buyer's search engine, which is amazing. Okay. So if we are thinking about our description, I mean, heck, we can even talk about our images. Images are also a place to where you could be found because you can actually add the title or the keyword in where you're editing that now. So there's some really cool stuff that we can do with that. They're going to be searched for and found and help with your listing. So anything that we're able to write, all right, something into our listing, we want to do it. And like Chris said, I wasn't sure how much weight that Etsy put into tags until I started looking at my Etsy ads as far as, okay, these things are starting to show that this person came from this keyword, which was located in a tag. So let me say that again. When you go into the back end of your Etsy ads, you can see the keywords that brought people there. And you can also, one little ninja tip here, you can also turn them off. If you see something that came in, it was a very generic keyword and you're like, I don't want to show up for that. You can turn that off, by the way, little ninja tip. But you can also see that it will show you it came in from the title or it came in from a tag, and it'll show you exactly where it came from. So when we say that, yes, tags are important and they do help your listing get indexed and get found, then yes. And I saw a question come in and it said that someone was told to leave their tags alone for 30, 60, or 90 days, something like that. Now, I am a fan of not going in there and playing too much. And I do agree, and I have seen this. When you change your title, it is definitely going to take you out of the indexing for a little while, and then it'll bring you back. That is definitely something. So that's why you don't want to be playing around. If you're not ranking, you want to be careful with adjusting things, right? So get it close, do your research up front, plug it in, and let it sit. It's same thing as like a blog post or a YouTube video or anything. Like once you put it out there and it gets indexed, you don't want to screw that up. So don't go in there and mess around with it too much. Chris, what's your thoughts on that before we move on to the next one?
There's not a lot of reason to go in and mess around with it. Other than if you're getting the data back from something like Etsy ads. And Scott, I think I want to go to Etsy ads next, just because we've touched on it a bunch of times. There's no reason to go in and change your title and change your description and change your tags all of the time, unless we see compelling data to the contrary, right? So if we're not getting the sales that we want out of a listing, and somebody had asked about Everbee's tag analyzer, right? Yes, we're going to go look at our competitors, see what tags they're using that we aren't, and potentially drop them in. If we're getting a keyword that we see is converting to sales every time somebody clicks on it from Etsy ads, are we going to add that to our tags? Yeah, probably, right? Like we'd be crazy not to. And so when we have a data point, then go in and change it. But we don't need to be tweaking our listings. And I don't think we have that on our list of things that we're hearing that's bad advice. But constantly touching your listings is horrible advice, regardless of how old it is. It's even more detrimental to new listings. Getting it up and letting it sit and get some impressions is one of the most important things that you can do, right? And Scott, the other thing on tags is we often hear, and actually somebody over on YouTube had asked, do we have to fill out all of the tags? And my piece of general SEO advice would be always make it as long or as full as it needs to be and not longer. So if you have 10 tags and those are the only ones that make sense, fill out 10 tags. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to find an extra one when you do a competitive analysis. You're going to find one from pay-per-click. Then you have some spaces and you don't even have to really worry about it, right? Same thing I would say goes for the title. Do you have to fill out the full character count? No, stop when it stops making sense, right? Same thing with the product description. Do I have to fill out the block until it gives me a red error and says you put in too many characters? No, fill it in with as much detail as makes sense and then go from there. So I don't think you need to touch it often. I don't think you need to totally fill it out and micromanage it. And I don't think you need to worry about it that much, but you do need to put in the things that make sense. And once you do that, let it sit until you have data that tells you otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. Great advice. And that's exactly what we are doing. So do with it what you will. All right. All right. So moving on, let's go to the next one here, Chris. And this is going to be a good one. So here we go. Etsy SEO is the most important thing to get traffic to your Etsy products. True or false?
Define Etsy SEO. The answer is no, right? And it depends on how you're defining SEO. Writing a good product title, filling out your tags, getting a good product description, and having a good set of images is important because it's going to be the thing that sets the foundation. But going in and micromanaging it is not the thing that's going to get you sales, right? Scott, we just talked about when we were talking about tags, how it can actually be detrimental to go in and change things. And so we can't go in and micromanage it. It's important to rank, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing to me is once you get the chance in the Etsy algorithm, that your product description is well written, not necessarily the thing that made you rank for the keyword, right? But when somebody actually gets to your listing, do they buy? And if we're focused on SEO, right, stuffing as many keywords in as possible in a human unreadable format, that leads to a poor customer experience, which leads to a lower conversion rate. So I would say this is false, with the caveat of, if you're defining Etsy SEO as a good title, a good description, and a full set of tags, then that I would say is probably the biggest important foundation piece in terms of once you've picked a product. But going in, tweaking it, stuffing all your keywords in there, that is false. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And here is what I am going to say to that. It is false, but it, like you said, it's kind of tricky, right? Here's the deal. What I am saying is, if you are putting up a new listing, you're going to focus on your SEO, title, good images, tags, description, filling in everything in the back end, putting it in the right category, like all of those things. And that is all that you focus on. That is bad advice, because what really matters, okay, what really matters is getting sales through that listing. And the more sales that you get through that listing, your SEO doesn't even have to be that good. I actually have seen this. I've actually done, I did a little case study with it, or a little review of this one listing, and it was not good. And it was outranking most everyone else, because everyone thinks that people are finding the listing from this one search term, which is false. There is so many different ways, and you'll see that if you look in your analytics and you look in, whether it's the beta search, they have the keyword search now where you can kind of see the keywords that brought people over to your listings. You also have it in Etsy ads, which is another reason why we like running Etsy ads, even in the beginning, because we get data back of what people are actually typing in. We're not guessing. And then we can start to optimize for that. But SEO is important, but it's not the only thing that makes that listing rank. It comes down to sales, and those sales are going to also come from, like Chris said, higher conversions. What gives it a higher conversion? Well, reviews do, right? Because people are going to buy off of a review maybe. And then also images, which has partly to do with SEO, but a lot of people look at SEO as just the words. There's more to it. And I think that's what I wanted to say. So when people are in the mindset like, oh, I just got to find more tags, and then I'm going to magically appear on the top and I'm going to magically get sales. No, that is false. That is not what's going to happen, because you can get on page one, top of page one on day one. You want to know how? You run Etsy ads, and you're going to get there, and you're going to know real quick, I got traffic. I didn't get any sales. Why is that? Maybe because you don't have any reviews yet, or maybe because the listing is poorly optimized as far as your images, or other factors. So don't just say to yourself, I just need to find those magic keywords and then everything is going to happen, because it's really not. You have to get sales through the listing. That is like one of the most important thing in order to rank and get traffic.
I think we could flip this myth on its head and make it true. And I want to walk through this with you just to see if this works, Scott. The thing that people say when they say you have to focus on Etsy SEO is not the thing that people mean when they say focus on Etsy SEO, right? Search engine optimization, SEO, means optimizing something to show up in a search engine, right? There's only so much we can do to do that. That would be titles, keywords, whatever, right? But we have to also think about the goal of the search engine. For Google, that's to give you the piece of information. For Etsy, that's to give you the product that you are going to buy, assuming you're the customer, the person searching on Etsy, right? Well, how do they do that? To first figure out if you're relevant, yes, they're looking at the titles and the keywords and whatever, right? All of the words that we type in. But then they're saying, okay, Chris has funny barnyard chicken. Scott has funny barnyard chicken. Who sells more when I put it in front of a customer? And to get even more advanced, who sells more when I put it in front of a customer who has bought the stuff that Chris has bought, right? And so that's Etsy's job. And that's driven by conversion rates and sales, right? Which isn't something we have direct control over. So when people are saying that Etsy SEO is the most important thing, Scott, if I flip this on its head and say ranking in organic search is the most important thing to have long-term success on Etsy, is that true?
Yes. Yes. If we can do that, then yes, we are going to have sales that are going to come in without even really needing to worry about your optimization as much on your SEO because it's already been done. You've already been indexed. You've already proven to Etsy that your product sells and people like it. And then, yes, it becomes way easier. And there's another question that we're going to answer, or another piece of advice that we're going to be answering here shortly about should you still run ads, when you are getting those sales and you are organically ranking, which we'll address that here in a little bit. But yes, I would say it is. That's the holy grail, right? Like we want to show up in top of search and we want to show up for multiple keywords. All right. And that will happen. And that's the other thing I want to touch on. As your listing becomes more seasoned, and we mean seasoned, it's older, it's got history, it's got more sales history through it, you're going to also get indexed for more keywords. All right. And as that happens, it starts to widen that net a little bit. But if you are also going after products that don't have a lot of demand, probably not going to get a lot of sales. So one other little thing there I wanted to bring up on that note. All right. So Chris, I am going to answer another question or another myth. We are going to bust this myth. I have a myth right now that came in the chat that we need to address.
I
didn't
added
even
that one
add
to
this
my list.
to my original list, but I have to address this. Okay. And that is, you should not promote your listings or your shop on social media or any external channels other than internally within Etsy. Etsy does not like it. True or false?
Are you asking me?
I am asking
Absolutely
you.
false. I thought you were just going to tackle it because I know you're very passionate about this one. So
I'm going to have my chance.
This is absolutely false with one small caveat, right? Going back to talking about search engine optimization and needing to have a good conversion rate, one of the things that Etsy looks at, right, is whether when somebody comes to your listing, do they buy? And this is an example, Scott, of something that I mentioned at the beginning of this, where I said there's some grains of truth to some of these, but overall, it's hands down false, right? And so to me, there is a grain of truth in that if I go to Facebook and buy penny clicks from Indonesia, right? Nothing against Indonesia. It's a beautiful country, but they're not likely to buy stuff print on demand on Etsy, right? There's just not a big Etsy market for Indonesia. Sorry, guys. Then they're not going to convert, which could hurt me. However, if I'm driving targeted traffic, be that from my email list, from my website, from a Facebook ad that targets people who like fishing, and I sell fishing stuff, right? That traffic does have a chance to convert. And we've seen this over and over again with our own listings, right? The number one goal when you have a new listing on Etsy should be to get a sale via whatever means possible, short of breaking terms of service, right? So like, don't go to your mom and say, hey, can you buy my Etsy listing? Right? Like, don't do that. But we should be driving traffic from as many different places as possible to try to get that first conversion. Why? Because the most important thing to Etsy is making the sale. And if we can prove that that product sells, then we can start to worry about the other ranking factors like conversion rate and dialing in our titles and tags and all of those kinds of things. So if we're driving unqualified garbage traffic, right, that's when there could be a grain of truth to that. Other than that, Etsy loves external traffic, especially if that external traffic converts because they didn't have to do anything to do it. Oh, and by the way, Scott, have you ever heard of a program? I know I'm getting really hyped up about this because this one drives me bonkers. Have you ever heard of a program called Etsy Offsite Ads?
Yes, I have.
Etsy buys external traffic to send to Etsy. They have a team of marketers who spend more money on pay-per-click than I ever have in an annual, on an annual budget. They spend that every year specifically to drive external traffic from Facebook, Pinterest, Google, all of these places to Etsy to then buy stuff on Etsy. It's one of the number one things that I hear people complaining about, right? Because you pay a higher percentage when a sale comes from Etsy offsite ads. And then those same people turn around and say, well, you shouldn't drive external traffic because Etsy doesn't like free traffic coming to their site and rewarding them by handing them money, right? Like, this is the thing that we have to think about. So to me, there is a grain of truth to this in that if I drive 1 million people from a website or from a place that are never going to buy my products, then yes, that will hurt your ability to rank. Why? Because Etsy thinks that you have a garbage listing because nobody wants to buy it. If, on the other hand, we are driving qualified traffic from a Facebook group, Facebook ads for people who are interested, Google ads, our email list, our website, right? People who are interested in our stuff, they are going to go buy it. Scott, what do we do when we launch a product? A lot of times we send an email to our list, and what happens? We skyrocket in the organic rankings. Why? Because Etsy goes, hey, 15 people came to this listing and 5 of them bought. That's a 33.3% conversion rate. That's blowing everybody else out of the water. Maybe we should test this in organic to see what happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and guys, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. Chris is not yelling at you. He is just very, very excited. I get that in the comments sometimes, Chris, on YouTube. They basically say, Scott, stop yelling at me. And I'm like, no, I'm not yelling. I'm excited. And I'm trying to get my point across because I'm like, oh, like stuff like this drives us crazy. And here's the other thing I want you guys to know, and why I feel this is 100% false from the side of Etsy does not want you to drive external traffic. That was the statement that was made by this individual, by the way. And here is why this is completely false. And Etsy basically says it. And here's why. If you go into your dashboard and we're approaching a holiday, and it's getting crunch time to where the holiday is coming to an end, guess what? Etsy is going to have a little thing at their banner and that says, hey, you still got time to share your products on social media. It literally says it. I took a screenshot of it so I could share it in one of my trainings. They literally say, here's your link. Go share it. But what this person's saying is, no, they don't want you to do that. They're going to penalize you if they see traffic coming from Facebook. That's what they're saying. No. What Chris is saying is if you send any old traffic that's not interested in your products and it comes over and it doesn't convert as high as it would if it was good traffic, yes, it can hurt your conversions. But what we're talking about is not the traffic. We're talking about the viewers that saw it, how many people purchased it. All right. So that's really what you need to understand here. And if you have an email list that is built up of your past customers, why wouldn't you send that to those people? Why wouldn't you send it out to social media if you have a social media group of people that are interested in fishing or whatever it is? So please, let's put that one to rest. That one there really, it just kind of goosed me a little bit there.
I'm gonna try to take a deep breath and calm down. But here's the other thing. So Scott, you and I, we jumped on with Miss Debbie back in October, and we went into some of the changes and some of the updates that Etsy was making. What happens when you run a sale or a promotion on Etsy? What does Etsy do?
Well, generally Etsy is going to want to promote that, and they're going to want to probably also, because they have their own type of like retargeting and all that stuff, they're going to get people to come on over to see that.
They send a push notification. They send an email, right? What is email? Email is external traffic. Etsy doesn't care if they came from Etsy search, if they came from offsite ads, if they came from the Etsy email, or if they came from your email, as long as they're buying the thing, right? And this is the thing where we were talking about ranking when we debunked the SEO is the most important thing myth, right? It's the traffic and the people buying. So even if nobody bought, Scott, even if we were driving that traffic from Indonesia that was never going to buy, there's actually still a chance, as long as we kept it under control, that we would rank higher in the short term. Why? Because Etsy's going, there's people interested in this. We should probably put it in front of people. If then, when we get that chance, we don't start converting, that's when it becomes a problem, right? Would I suggest anybody run ads to random people in Indonesia to promote your Etsy products? No, spend that same time, energy, and effort on somebody who might actually buy your product. But if we're getting bodies to the listing, that's step number one, right? Step number two is then getting those people to convert. Etsy doesn't care where they came from. And actually, if you save them from having to pay a marketing guy like me to run more offsite Etsy ads, that makes them very happy, right? They don't have to take a higher percentage to pay for my inflated salary or whatever it is, right? They can just sit back and watch the automated sales roll in. What they care about at the end of the day is that your listing makes sales when it's put in front of people. And if that's the case, they will put you in front of more people, regardless of where those sales came from originally.
Yeah. Yeah. So guys, if you are listening to this and you just saw that one little rant that we went on there, it turned into a rant. We didn't mean it to. And that wasn't even on our list of things to discuss, but I'm so glad that you guys brought that up. Please share that with anyone that you feel might be thinking that, because that is absolute terrible, terrible advice. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the next little bit of discussion here that we have for you. So let's talk about this one, Chris. You should wait until you have multiple products to launch your store, your shop on Etsy. True or false?
If you only have one product idea, I might wait. But if you are using the niche-based approach, this answer is false, right? As soon as you have something, put it up. Why? We've talked about this when we debunked the SEO stuff, but you have to have time to rank and time to be put in front of people. And if I wait until I have 10 products, let's say, Scott, my goal is to start making a sale a day in April, right? If I wait until April 1st, because I know between now and April 1st, I'm going to be able to create 10 products, I'm then hoping that all of those products rank right away, rather than spending the time today to create the product, get it up and get it listed, spend a little bit of time tomorrow creating a product, getting it up and getting it listed, right? The sooner I have a product on Etsy, be it 1, 5, 10, 5,000, I don't care, the sooner I have the chance to get sales and perhaps more importantly up front, data, right? If I'm turning on Etsy ads, if I'm ranking or getting any impressions on Etsy, I then have a chance to get a sale and work me towards my goal. If I wait until I have 5 products, 10 products, 20 products, whatever it is, right? And somebody had asked us last week, how many products do I need to be successful? The answer is 1 if it sells really well, right? We have to get something up. The other side to this is not just the like wait and see side, it's more of the momentum side. If I have 1 product up, and I start to see that I have a little bit of success with that, do you not think that that gives me a little bit more motivation to create product 2 or product 3 versus creating product 1, seeing it sitting there in a folder on my desktop and going, yeah, I should probably get 8 more products up or 9 more products up before April if I want to hit my goal. Yeah, seeing that there's traffic, right? It's those little dopamine hits that you get when you play sales roulette and you refresh the Etsy app or you hear the cha-ching, right? There's a reason that sound is built into that app. It's to give you that dopamine hit of saying, hey, you did something good. Now go do more of it, right? It's their way of rewarding you for getting a sale. And it gives you that little dopamine hit. And so if we can take those small steps towards those bigger goals, we're always going to be better off. Hands down, false. If you only have one product idea and you're in a product focused thing, then yeah, obviously you have to wait until the product is done. If you're using the niche based approach, you don't have to wait till you have every product you could create for your niche to launch your store. Launch it with 1, get those impressions, get those early sales, and get that data back. And that will help you understand what other products you should be creating for those 10 products. Do you need new designs, or do you just need more products with the same design on it? If you put it up and it starts selling, well, then that changes how the next 4 or 5 products that you're coming out with are going to be produced, right? Maybe we don't go create more designs right away. I just take that same design that's already selling and put it on a pillow, put it on a blanket, put it on a t-shirt, whatever it is that I haven't done already. Getting that early data, getting those early sales, it's going to give you that dopamine hit. It's going to change how you set everything up. Just get started.
Yeah, no, that's 100% my answer as well. As far as like, are we going to wait? No. And to your point, Chris, it's like one product. Well, that's only one product that you created with that one design. You should be also thinking about that one design getting applied to multiple products. And now what we can do is we can start launching products on a regular basis. So even if you feel like you only have one right now, get that thing out there, get it indexing, because it's going to take time for Etsy to start seeing, okay, is this product, fit for this audience, for this search term? All of those things happen over time. And then it also allows you to start experimenting and start playing a little bit while you're adding more products. But like Chris said, if you don't have a niche that you're going to be serving products to, where you're going to build out products for this niche. Like if you're in the fishing niche, if you're in, I don't know, yoga, whatever it is, right? You're going to be thinking about what are those other products, and you're going to be doing your product research around that niche. So that's going to help you. Then you're just going to be launching products, and it doesn't have to be, oh, I got to do one every day. It just means you want to do them as soon as you can so you can start getting those things indexed, because it will take time to get those indexed. And the quicker you get them there listed, you're going to be able to start getting indexed. So I say, don't wait, get whatever you have done, get it listed and get it up there, because that's your greatest chance of starting to get some sales. All right, Chris, let's move on to the next bit of discussion here. And this one here is a good one as well. So here we go. You should wait to run Etsy ads until you have some sales and reviews. True or false, Chris?
False. Do we need explanation for that? This one is false, right? Like we've talked about this. Your number one goal when you create an Etsy listing should be to get sales via any means possible within the terms of service, right? Whether that's sending an email to your list, whether that's posting it on your Facebook page, right? Don't post it to your personal profile, post it to your Facebook page for your business, because those are going to be the people who are actually interested in your niche, right? It doesn't matter where we're getting that from. We should be using every tool in the toolbox to get those early sales. Why? Early sales give us data. Early sales give us velocity, and early sales give us that good juju for SEO, right? We've talked about this kind of to death, but the number one thing you need to rank on Etsy is sales. How do you get sales without ranking? You get traffic. How do you get traffic? Etsy ads, right? And Scott, a lot of people ask, should I look at social media ads before Etsy ads? This is kind of the other side of this. No. Why? Because that little grain of truth in the myth about driving external traffic, right? That traffic will generally convert lower unless they're on your email list, right? But if we're just talking about a stereotypical Facebook ad, the random person on Facebook who's clicking on your ad about fishing stuff is going to convert at a lower rate than someone who's already on Etsy typing in fishing shirt for my dad for Father's Day, right? Yes, that's how I type. That's always going to convert substantially higher. So if our goal is to have sales, a good conversion rate, and traffic, what does Etsy ad get us? All three of those. It also gives us the bonus benefit of letting us know if we're optimized for the right keywords, if we have the right tags, right? Because Etsy ads data shows us where those visits and sales come from. So if we then made a mistake in how we crafted our title or our description, or we didn't put in all the right tags, we're able to correct that up front and take advantage of the sales that we're getting early. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's exactly what we've always said. It's like, if you wait to get sales, it can happen, but now we are relying 100% on organic traffic, right? Unless you have an email list already built up, well, you're going to use that, obviously, but I would still want to run those Etsy ads, and I would not be waiting. So we want to always be thinking about, how do we get sales through the door? And it's not just for the profit, it's for the data, and it's for everything else that comes along with it. When you're starting to get that sales velocity, we're also sending a signal in the Etsy algorithm that is going to help us rank organically. So whenever I hear that, it's kind of, again, it's not really a business mindset, because, and someone had posted in the comments and they said, if you were having a grand opening for a brick and mortar store, you would probably pay for a grand opening thing, right? And I remember years ago, my father, I used to work for his construction company. We were opening a new location, not even a new store, just a new location. And we invested in, having like people come in that were going to be catering, whether it's hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever. We had balloons that we had to buy. We had, actually I dressed up in the Owens Corning because we were in the insulation, kind of in the window business. So I was dressed up, going out by the road, jumping up and down, trying to get attention to bring people in. So all of those things are going into bringing awareness to your products and to your Etsy shop. So it's the same thing. If you have a brick and mortar, if you have an online, you have to get traffic. And in the beginning, if all you're doing is relying on SEO, It's going to take a while, and it might not actually happen because the people that you're competing with are getting regular sales, and now you need to match their sales in order to get noticed. So that's why running the Etsy ads to me is critical, and it's not waiting till you're getting sales. You're actually doing them, running them to get sales, right? And that is the mindset that needs to shift. And I'm not saying you got to spend $100 a day. We're talking $2 a day, $5 a day. We generally start at $5 a day. I know we're kind of crazy, right? $5 a day that, we're going to give up one of those frappuccinos from Starbucks, we're going to put that into our Etsy ads. But we really want the data, and we want to get those sales coming through the door. So to me, that again is bad advice. If someone is saying, wait until you get some sales before you go running those Etsy ads, just wait a little bit, right? Hold off on those, right? That's going to stunt your growth. Actually, that's going to make it so you don't grow.
So Scott, but before we dive into the next one, what is, like, a lot of these have a grain of truth. I can't find a grain of truth in that one, other than there's a lot of people who just don't like the idea of running ads, right? Like, we've had fantastic return on investment every time we've ever run Etsy ads. And if there's something that we're spending money on that's not converting, you just turn it off. But to me, this one doesn't even have a grain of truth to it, because the two most important things when we're getting started are traffic and sales. And if we can shortcut that process in any way, there's no reason not to do it. I can't find even a tiny grain of truth in that. And if you guys can, let us know in the comments, because I'm just curious where that one comes from.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So I think it's also because, and whoever is giving the advice, but it's not even just from a guru, let's say, it's from other sellers that are just getting started too. And it's like, well, I didn't make any money yet. So if I didn't make any money yet, then I'm not going to invest in my business. That's kind of how it is. It's like, well, I'm going to open this business and I'm not going to spend any money. I'm just going to do everything for free until I make money. And then I'm going to invest in my business. Like, who does that? Right. So I think it also could be advice that's given from other people in groups that are new, that are like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't run any ads yet until you get some sales. Like, we want to everything. And we'll get into this here in a little bit, but everything is generally, when you're first starting, the mindset is profit. I want to make profit. And don't get me wrong, guys, I want to make profit too. But there's also a cost that goes into getting a business off the ground. And it's a lot easier doing it this way than to buy a franchise and do all of those things and to recoup your money. But we do need to do things in order to promote our business and our shop and our products to get it in front of people. And then everything else kind of works itself out. And that's why we also, when we're spending that money, we're acquiring that customer, because that's what we're doing. We're acquiring a customer, is we are now also having the ability to sell them something in the future. And that's why we always talk about building a product line for a specific niche and for a specific customer. So really, really important on that one. All right, let's answer this next one, or discuss it as, at this point, we're just discussing things. Having discounts and promos only leads to short-term sales and could actually hurt you in the long run. So what do you think on that one, Chris? True or false?
This one to me is false, right? The common misperception about promotions, and it can happen if we're thinking about, like, I don't know, let me just throw back to my early employment days, right? Circuit City, if you guys remember Circuit City, right? I sold TVs for them and home theater. And yes, you would get a big rush before the Super Bowl or whatever, because they were having some sort of a promotion. And yes, maybe they would sell fewer TVs, but overall they're actually selling more, right? And so the theory is, oh, well, there's a little bit of a lull after a promotion, so no one is actually going to buy it, right? It comes out as a net, and it actually loses us money because we promoted on that. And that's not actually how the data pans out. Why? Especially with somebody like an Etsy or an Amazon. Why is that? Because one of the most important things to ranking organically is traffic and sales. What's a great way of driving traffic and sales, especially at a really high conversion rate? Giving them a little bit of a discount. Why? Because everybody likes saving money. Nobody doesn't like paying less than sticker for something. And so if you can get people in, and you can get them converted, and you can get them to the listing and buying stuff from you, then yes, you are going to have a short-term burst in sales. And sometimes, right, there is a little bit of a dip afterwards. There's a little bit of a hangover, if you will, afterwards from the people who would have been buying it within that week anyway, that already added it to their cart or favorited it, right? But the long-term benefit of that is we rank higher organically because Etsy sees that we're willing to invest in the business, that we're getting traffic, that we're converting it, that we're converting at a really high rate. And so what often ends up happening with this is we end up ranking higher, which then what happens, Scott? It leads to more traffic and sales, and the cycle begins again, right? Sales and promotions absolutely have a place. Long term, if you look at your store data, you will see that they lead to more sales, at least in my opinion. Every store I've ever looked at, if you rank higher, you get more sales. This is a way of ranking higher. Short term, if you take a 2-week view of this, then yes, you may see a little bit of a sales hangover from the people who already had it in their cart, favored it, whatever, were interested and just hadn't purchased it yet. But long term, you end up with a bigger benefit. So Scott, what are your thoughts on that? Do discounts and promos lead to fewer long-term sales? So a short-term gain at the expense of the long-term, true or false?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're definitely going to gain in the short term, but to me, you're also going to gain in the long term. And here's why. Because once we are able to get that customer, even if it was at a discount, we have a customer. Remember what I said earlier, if we get the customer and we have more products that the customer can buy, and they might have favorited our shop, they might have favorited an item, and now we're going to be able to send them push notifications through Etsy. We're also going to be able to send our triggered emails inside of Etsy. So even if they come in and they don't buy, they abandon the cart, then we're going to be able to send an email automatically inside of Etsy. They give us that option. So there's all of those things that we're able to do even in the long term. So short term, yes, we're gaining. And one of the main reasons is, like you said, Chris, people love sales. But the other big benefit of running these sales is you are also going to start showing up in different areas of the Etsy platform, because they have certain areas that they are promoting for sales. And if you've ever went around the holidays, you'll see up in the left-hand corner on desktop, you'll see there, it'll say like holiday sales or holiday deals or something like that. And then people will click there and they'll see what is on sale. The other thing is, if you're running Etsy ads, well, you're going to probably convert it higher because now you're running a sale and people see that strike through, which is always, always attractive. They're like, oh, the regular price was $29.99 and now it's $19.99. Okay, I better get this. And then the other thing that the sale does is it also adds a little bit of urgency and scarcity. And if you run a short sale, we say short sales, like less than 7 days or 7 days or less, we're also going to get that countdown when we start approaching that last 24 hours, which is also pretty important. And if you're running Etsy ads, that will definitely help you. So I'm a fan of running promotions and sales. And I think there's both short and long-term benefits, but a lot of times people only concentrate on the short term and they don't look at the long term. Once that customer is coming through your system, they are now your customer, whether it's on your email list or whether it's someone that's favorited or followed your shop, or even went over to your website if you have one, or your social media, and now they're part of your world. So that's why I think there's a huge amount of benefit for running these sales and promotions, and I think there's both short and long-term benefits.
I think you just found the grain of truth in that one, right? If we are a product-focused store and we run a sale, then getting the customer isn't necessarily beneficial for us long-term, right? So we may see that hangover last longer, or not give us those long-term benefits that we do if we are a niche-based store, right? So if it's still not to say that you're not going to rank higher if you are in a product-focused store, like all you do is t-shirts, right? But you are going to have a longer hangover and less long-term benefits from that customer list, because if they buy a t-shirt from you, they don't really care about the other stuff that you have if you're a t-shirt store. If you're a fishing store, then getting them in as a customer, people are much more likely to buy from somebody they've already bought from, right? And so the next time they have a fishing related thing, even if they came in on a promo, guess who they're going to buy from? They're going to buy from you. And so, Scott, I think that might be where that little grain of truth in that myth is that, if you're truly a product focused garage sale type of a store, you don't necessarily see the direct translation the way that you do if you're in a niche focused store. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually one question that came in that we'll answer here while we're on this topic. And that is, would you run promotions on multiple items at a time or rotate so you always have at least one item on sale? Thank you. Well, the answer is I would probably try to run them on all of your products, right? Like, why not run them on all of your products depending on what you have? And test it. You can test it on certain categories or certain products, but for the most part, you probably want to run it across the board. Now, you don't have to have the same sale. You might want to say, well, for my t-shirts, I want to offer 20% off. And for, I don't know, my blankets, I want to offer 15% or whatever, right? So you can do that. But I would say if you're going to do it, I would do it across the board. It makes things a little bit easier as well when you're running them. But again, that's just personal preference. I mean, if you're trying to sell certain items and you just want to put those on sale, then just do those, concentrate on those, and maybe just run Etsy ads on those. All right, let's move on to, I believe this is our last one. And if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. And guys, if you guys are getting value from this, do me a quick favor and give us some love. Give us some hearts or thumbs up wherever you're watching this. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're there. If you're on the podcast, leave us a review over on iTunes. That would be amazing. And maybe even just drop a comment. Let us know, what is one of your biggest takeaways from this episode? All right, let's go to the last one here. And that is, Chris, you should always include shipping in your product cost. True or false?
False. To a point, right? So this is one where I would say if you can afford to do it and it doesn't price you out of the market completely, right? So by including the shipping, we're not taking what everybody else is selling for 50 and selling it for 150, right? Then you should include shipping. In a case where it's going to price you totally out of the market, then I would probably do it separately. What are your thoughts on that, Scott? Should you always include shipping in the product cost? True or false?
Well, honestly, this actually comes into play when we are doing our product research, to be quite honest with you. We actually just launched a couple of products, maybe 3 or 4, that are really nice, but it's like $16 or $18 to ship. And now for us to absorb that and build it into our price, it's going to bring our price up. So what we actually chose to do was find other similar products that cost less to ship, right? So that might not, now we're still selling them, but we aren't being able to include as much. So what we did is we kind of broke it to where we're adding or we're building in like maybe $10. So we're absorbing 10 and we're only charging, let's say $6 for shipping, right? But I personally think that there's more upside and more benefits to offering free shipping. Amazon has pretty much trained us to not want to pay for shipping, right? It just makes it so much better for us. And when I have to go to another platform and I got to pay $9 for shipping, I'm like, if I went to Amazon, I get it for free, right? So I do think that's a conversion mechanism. So that's why I always try to build it into the price for the most part. And it might even come down to, well, you know what? I don't think I'm going to sell that product because there's just not enough margin in it if I build it into my price. And I don't think someone wants to pay $16 for that item. So I think it does come down to a product by product, but it also comes down to a more strategic approach as far as, do you want to offer free shipping? And if you do, then you need to build that into your price. So this way here, you're not absorbing all of that. And then there goes all your profit. So you have to look and see, I think, product by product, but I do think there's a huge amount of upside to including it in your price, building it into your price. So that way there you can offer the free shipping to the end customer.
So Scott, I have one that I know we touched around the edges on, and I wanted to pose this to you because my answer here is slightly sarcastic. True or false, you can't make sales without reviews.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so here's the deal. If that was the case, you'd never be able to sell. You'd never be able to get started. Now, is it going to be easier? Are you going to convert higher when you have reviews? 100%. So the question comes down to, well, what do you do to get sales, right? And to get reviews. So I think it comes down to, in the very beginning, having a really, really well optimized listing. And I don't mean optimized in the standpoint of all of your keywords are right and all of that stuff. I think you focus a lot on your images. I think you focus on your store, your shop, your about section, your announcement section, everything that you can do to make that person come through and feel as though they are buying from a reputable company, even though it might be new. And so I think it really does come down to that. That's also where I think it's going to come down to, you're going to need more views to that listing than you are in the future. And that's where Etsy ads will come in. And you're really just trying to get those people that they'll buy even if they don't get a review. But then with that being said, I would also lean into the people that do buy. I'd be reaching out to them and saying, hey, hopefully everything, arrived okay, or hopefully everything you received was everything that you expected. If you have any questions, let me know. Like, trying to be really, really overly supportive. So this way here, they will naturally leave you a review. So I think that is false. You don't have to wait until you have reviews, or else you wouldn't be getting any sales ever. And I'm not a fan of asking everyone to go buy one and then leave a review. I'm not a fan of that. So I say in the very beginning, it's going to be hard or harder to get sales when you don't have any reviews, but it's just a matter of time. And that's the newness, right? And then once you get reviews, guess what? You have a seasoned account now. That's why everything just starts to snowball in a good way. When you get reviews, you get sales history, you have, star seller ratings, all of those things. That's going to help you convert higher at a later date. But in the beginning, your conversion will definitely be less if you don't have reviews. You're muted.
Obviously, this one is false. If you had to have reviews to get sales, no one would ever get sales, right? Like, let's use a little bit of common sense. And I know that common sense can be dangerous and it's not that common, but if you needed reviews to get sales, period, and that's kind of how this is pushed, then no one launching a new product would ever get sales, right? And so, yes, does having reviews tend to lead to more sales? Yes. Why is that? Because they help boost conversion rate. But Etsy specifically, and this is something that a lot of other marketplaces don't do, Scott. Etsy specifically, if you ever go to a product, if that seller has reviews on any other product, they show you the reviews for the other products that people have purchased. Why is that? Because they know that most people aren't going to read the reviews anyway. And they just look down, they see that there's a bunch of people that gave a 5-star review, 4-star review, whatever it is. That gives you enough of a conversion rate boost to then be able to get sales on the new product, right? I would stay far, far away from anyone telling you, and we actually had a comment come in while we were talking about this, and we've touched on this in a couple other myths that we've debunked. Stay far, far away from have your family buy it and give you a review. Why is that? Well, I haven't dug through the Etsy terms of service specifically, but I guarantee you that there's something in there about manipulating their search algorithm and getting your account shut down, right? What is that? That would be manipulating the search algorithm. Right? That's exactly what that is. And even if it's not spelled out, don't ask your family to do stuff and then send them money via Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, right? That was something that was really popular in Amazon in like 2013, 2014, right? Because people had this same myth that you can never sell a product unless it has a review. That is something that is not just potentially dangerous to your account, but it's also counterproductive. Why? Etsy is looking at who's buying those products. One of the things that is a ranking factor for them, if you pull up your Etsy account, Scott, and I pull mine up and we type in the same keyword, the search results are not going to be the same. There is some personalization that they put into this. And if we send garbage traffic or people who aren't actually interested into the product, and that then sends a buyer signal to Etsy, and Etsy goes, okay, it looks like this person who's Scott's cousin who buys cat toys on Etsy normally, but they bought this. So I'm just going to show this to all of the people who normally buy cat toys, even though this is a giraffe or whatever. I don't know. Giraffes aren't pets, but you guys get where I'm going with this, right? They're not related to the people who would buy this normally. That actually is a negative when they start trying to rank us for keywords and show us to the right people, because we've then sent unqualified buyers to it. We've sent a bad signal to Etsy and they don't know the difference. So they're looking at that and saying, let's put it in front of these people. And then nobody buys. Guess where we end up? At the bottom of the search results. So stay away from that. Don't worry about reviews. Reviews will come with time. The thing that leads to reviews, to Scott's point, sales and good customer service. If you do those two things,
yep,
then you will get the reviews and they will come. And even 2 or 3 reviews is enough for most products to kind of be at their optimal place from a conversion rate perspective, especially somewhere like Etsy where the volume is not millions of units a day, right? So I wouldn't even think about it, quite honestly. Focus on creating products that have demand. And then when someone buys that product, give them a great customer experience. If you do those 2 things, the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. And I want to just underscore and highlight that last little bit that Chris said. Customer support is key. It's huge. And on Etsy, it's, to me, even more so, because I mean, my wife will be communicating with, whatever, Marlene from Ohio, right? Like literally like communicating with these people. And that's what the Etsy platform has really, the Etsy buyers, that's what they expect. So really, really focus on the customer side and the reviews will come. I promise you. So get those sales, take care of those customers. If they have any problems, don't give them a hard time. If they have something that didn't come through, don't try to make them send it back and try to get all the, don't make it hard, right? Especially in the beginning when you're trying to build up your account. All right. So yeah, that last part, definitely want to highlight that for Chris. Customer service is key. It is huge, especially in the beginning. All right. I've got one here, Chris, that we did not have on our list, but I like this and I want to bring this up. And someone had said, another Etsy YouTube coach mentioned it is beneficial to price the product as low as you can to bring that person to the listing. True or false? I'm going to jump in on this one, Chris, and I'm going to say true. I'm going to give this one a true. And I'm going to tell you why. I think there's a lot of Etsy sellers that are just looking at the profit in the very beginning. And if we look at any small business, and Chris, you'd probably have the numbers stored away in your head somewhere because you're good like that. And you know all these statistics as far as like when a business starts a brick and mortar shop, how many years before they actually turn a profit? It's years, right? And we're like, oh, I want to start my Etsy shop for bare minimum, 20 cents for my listing. I don't want to spend any money on Etsy ads and I want to make money, right? That's what it all comes down to. But this advice here of pricing yourself low with, to me, breaking even, let's call it, or $1 or $2 more in the very beginning, it's kind of like a grand opening. So the money that you would be making is necessarily just getting rolled right back in, and you're able to then what? Get sales, which is also going to what? Get a customer, and that customer can buy more in the future, and that customer can leave you a review that we just talked about, right? And so all of those things start to happen. So I'm a fan of pricing that product lower than you will charge in the future, and to try to do it as low as you can without losing money, right? I mean, in some cases, I would even do it and lose a couple bucks if I knew that I was going to be able to get some reviews, get a customer, and all of that stuff. So Chris, what's your thoughts on that bit of advice? I gave mine. I'm going to give that's true in my book. You might have different thoughts. What's your thoughts on this?
I think the idea is true. The implication of phrasing it that way is false, right? And so I want to run this by you, Scott, and I know we're just kind of doing this one off the cuff. Should you price your product as good as possible? Yes. Should you list that price, right? So the price that we type into Printify or Etsy, should that be a price that we then change? Maybe, maybe not. The way that I would like to see people implement this is rather than pricing it at $13, if that's what we want to sell it at, right? That's our bargain basement price. I would rather see you price it at the regular retail price, whatever you're going to sell it for normally, and then run an Etsy sale or promotion down to that $13.99.
Yeah.
Why?
Yep.
Because sales and promotions lead to sales, right? So the entire concept behind pricing it as low as possible is that we're trying to capture that click when Etsy finally gives us the chance, right? And so if they see, and there's always going to be somebody cheaper, right? Like it's kind of a law of nature. But being an attractive option from a price perspective is going to increase clicks from Etsy search. Why is that important? Traffic leads to sales, sales leads to traffic, traffic leads to sales, right? It's that Etsy sales flywheel that you've heard us talk about in the past. But if that's our goal, which really is kind of the grain of truth to that one, right? If our goal is to get as many clicks as possible, whether that's when we show up on Etsy ads or in Etsy organic search, the only thing that's better than a low price is a sale price. Why? Because then you get the strike through, you get the countdown timer when that sale is coming to an end, you get a little bit of urgency, and that's something that you can actually do beyond your first product, right? Like if this is your first product and you just want to put it at $13.99, then that's fine. But if we have other products in the store and we use the Etsy sales and promotion feature, the people who have bought from us, the people who have favorited our stuff, the people who have stuff in their carts, they get notified about that. And then there's the built-in traffic that comes along with that. So I like the idea. I would change the implementation slightly to make it a promotion or a sale rather than just the straight up retail price. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. And to be honest with you, that's kind of like, I would have already thought that. So I kind of already in my head was thinking we're going to show regular price, then we're going to give a discount as like, so that's a given to me. And I'm glad that you brought that up because maybe I wasn't clear because I was just saying like, yeah, price it as low as you can. But part of that is show the regular price, show your discounted price, your launch price, and then you're going to get that sale benefit. So yeah, that's a given. And I'm glad that you brought that up because if I wasn't clear, that's exactly the way that I would want this to run, because then you're going to get the benefits of everything else that comes with having that sale, showing the strike through, getting, promoted in other areas of Etsy, the countdown, all of the things that come with the sale. So yeah, 100%. So whatever you're going to price it at, then whatever you can sell it for without losing money, and then just create that discount and then let it roll. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of that.
The one scary thing about that, and I think the one place where some people may mess that piece of advice up and end up losing their shirt, right, is not taking into account Etsy fees on whatever that price is. So make sure to include the Etsy fees and the product cost when you're doing that calculation so that you don't end up selling 500 at a loss of $1 each, right? But beyond that little bit of basic math, and I know for whatever reason that seems to just fall out of people's mind all the time when they're doing profit margin calculations, but there is that fee, right? Which ends up somewhere around like 9.5% in most cases. So just keep that in mind. And that is based on the selling price. So just if it's $13.99, subtract 9.5%, right? Their referral fee plus the transaction, it works out to around 9.5.
Well, yeah. And a really cool thing on that, Chris, is, and I'll throw a little shameless plug in here. If you go to Everbee, they have a free calculator. Even on the free plan, you can use it. And so what I always do is I will just, and I'll do this for our own products because everything gets allocated. Everything, if you're putting in your regular price, your discount, and then it'll take all the Etsy fees, it'll take the listing fees, all that stuff, shipping if you have it, plug it all in, and it'll show you what your net profit is. And then you can decide now what you have available to play with. So definitely check that out if you haven't done so already. There is a free version, brandcreators.com/Everbee. Check it out. There's my shameless little plug for Everbee, which I use every single day, like literally every day. I wish I had a timer on that and how much I use it. I mean, it's either for myself, just doing my research, or Lisa will say, hey, can you run this over here real quick? I'm kind of curious on that. And then I'll run it, but it's at least 10, 15 times a day. Anyway, let's go ahead. We have any questions, Chris, that we wanted to address before we wrap up this almost hour and a half long live?
Yeah, we have a couple. Let's knock through them really fast. When one sale period ends, would you run another one right away or wait a while and then run a sale again? The answer is it depends, right? There's no reason you couldn't just turn around and do it. You're going to get all the same benefits. The downside to that would be if you're doing that all of the time and you're perpetually on sale, then you start to get viewed as like a discount or a bargain. And then you do condition people to wait for a sale if you decide to stop running it. So to me, if you're going to do it back to back, there's nothing wrong with that. I just wouldn't do it back to back to back to back to back. Does that make sense? Like do it, with common sense involved there.
Yeah. Well, I think the other side of it is too, is you can, if you did want to run a sale all the time, you could just rotate how much the sale is for. I mean, look at Kohl's, right? Kohl's does it all the time. You have a little sticker underneath your little card and you get to see this month I get 15% off. I'm not really too excited about that. And then next month, did I get 30? Did I get 30? Oh, I got 20, right? So you can mix it up. I do think that we are also on Etsy conditioned to see sales. So we I think almost buyers expect it now. So Yeah, play with it. And I think that that's going to adjust. I know right now we're experimenting with some launches that we're doing on products, and we're having a very, very steep launch price type discount, but it's not always going to stay there. It might go from 70% off to 40% off or 20% off, right? So I think you can still have the sale, and then you can also, because here's the deal, the new people that are coming in next week, they aren't the same people they saw it this week. So we still want to get those benefits from running that. So I think to each its own. And I also think it depends on how much you're offering on that sale. So that way they're, like Chris said, it's not always the same, and you can kind of mix that up a little bit.
Scott, is there a minimum discount you would provide on a sale? Sometimes I see 5% and it seems kind of silly.
Yeah, well, here's my thoughts on that. How it's you know what's really funny, and I was doing a video that's going to air, I think, next week on digital products, and I found a bunch more that I wanted to highlight just to kind of show the potential. But there's some people that have like a digital product for like $8.99, and they're giving 5% off. It's like, oh, thank you, I got like 90 cents or whatever it is, right? And so I think it depends on how much the product is. So if you have $100 product and you're offering 10% off, well, that comes out to something decent, right? But if it's 10% off of $10, not so much. So I think you have to also look at what is the amount that's showing that it's getting off. If it goes from $29.99 to $19.99, that's a good number, right? Like, so we want people to feel as though they are getting a discount. It's not just like, oh, I get 12% off. Great. So I would definitely say a minimum for me personally, I like, and depending on the item cost or the price that we're charging. I've done them. I think the lowest I've ever done is 15%. And I think the highest, we ran them for 70%, right? So it does depend on the product and how much you're charging for it to show and represent how much of a discount they're getting.
Is it better to price your item low and then charge in shipping to show up higher in the ranking? So you're not going to show up higher in the ranking just by having a lower price product, right? Especially if the people that come to your listing then don't convert because they realize they have to pay $700 in shipping, right? So the thing we have to keep in mind here is the two most important factors are traffic and sales, right? The thing that's in between those two is conversion rate. And so if I get 100 people and you get 100 people to your listing and I convert 10 and you convert 5, right? Etsy is going to rank me higher than you. And so high shipping at checkout at the expense of a low upfront cost is actually doing the opposite of what you want it to do, because you're getting people to click through and then they see that you're charging them $700 for shipping. I'm just going to use the most ridiculous example, right? $700 for shipping. And when they come to mine, they see that my product is $700. So someone who clicks on my listing knows that they're expecting to pay $700 versus $1. And then they realize it's $701. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah. Yep. 100%. I think just having a low price is not going to help you get ranked. What's going to help you get ranked is sales. And because you have a low price, that is the case. But if you drive people there and they're going to be like, oh, that's why it's so cheap, because they're going to charge me all the shipping. Right. So I think that could actually hurt you and not help you as a conversion side of things. I think I would rather have free shipping show up than it show up at a lower price, but yet I'm charging $20 for shipping. So again, it's just personal preference. Test it and see what happens. I did want to address this one real quick, Chris. We've gotten this before because some of our past, audience that has listened to us for years wanted to know about our niche websites. Well, basically anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's basically a website, a blog that gets traffic, and we basically monetize it. Well, we have a few of them, and one of them we have built for about 3 years now, and that's also now part of our Etsy shop. So we're taking that traffic, we're building it up. So we're still constantly doing that. And that is one that's actually helping to build our email list and also help us sell our products. We have another one that we've been working on as one of our case studies. We're getting ready to sell. So that one there, we're working behind the scenes to build that up, but we're about ready to sell that one. And then, we have a couple other ones that are still in the works and they are being built on a regular basis. So for anyone that's wondering, do we still like to build external websites to drive traffic, whether it's to that site or to other properties like Etsy? The answer is yes, 100%. We're a huge fan of written content And we're still doing that. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit on that. And then another quick question, Chris, and then let's wrap it up. This is from Aaron, just out of curiosity, how much time per week do you each of you dedicate to Etsy now versus when you started out? Well, just to be clear, my wife is the one that started the Etsy thing, and she was referred by one of my ex-business partners and a friend of ours. So she's doing a lot of the day-to-day. She's doing all of the design creation, all of that stuff, the listings, Printify, all of that stuff. And I would say if she's not in creation mode, depending on the time of year, if it's fourth quarter, totally different story. But if it's like regular, she can probably, I would say throughout the year, spend probably an hour or two per day, and she could be done. But because she's kind of into this design thing, she actually loves it and enjoys it. And it's almost like an addiction in a sense. It's kind of like years ago in her photography business, is she just loves it. So she could be designing for 4 or 5 hours a day. She just loves it and enjoys it. So, but I would say the day-to-day operations, 1 to 2 hours. If it's not in like fourth quarter, you could be 4 or 5 hours because there's just a lot of orders coming through the door. So hopefully that answered that for you, Aaron. Chris, anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. I'm just scrolling through really quick to see if anybody snuck something in, but I think we're good to go.
All right, cool. All right, guys, if you are listening to this on the podcast, I want to thank you guys. If you're on YouTube, thank you as well. Facebook, Rock Your Brand group. Love you guys. And if you guys are not part of the group and you wanted to be part of our Rock Your Brand group, head on over to brandcreators.com/group, and you can join us there, whether it's there or on YouTube. And that's where we live stream every single Wednesday. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, you will get the audio version. But if we share the screen and show some stuff and demo some stuff, that's what we'll be doing there. We are going to be doing some live Etsy shop reviews, some audits as we call them. That's going to be coming soon. So stay tuned for that. So if you are on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're on Facebook, make sure that you're in the group and you're active. And if you're on the podcast, well, just sit tight and we'll be back with another episode next week. All right, guys. So take care, take action, have an awesome, amazing day, and we'll see you right back here on the next episode. Take care, guys.